back on record, the time's 2:05 p.m.
Okay, sir, so I want to go over, I'll attach this as Plaintiff's Exhibit 28. We received an Excel spreadsheet. We kind of referenced this earlier, and it had just kind of a very brief description of what the service call was and the date. Well, I'd say the majority of it is for the pool, but there's some other things I wanted to ask you about. So I'll attach that as 28. And the ones that I'm more interested in, I'm going to show you. I've just copy and pasted some of the services that I'm more interested in.
Okay.
And I'll attach that portion as Plaintiff's Exhibit 29.
We are just lodging an objection to the exhibit. I'm not telling you you can't use it, of course, but if this is something you created, then
I just copy and pasted it
yeah,
from
then
there.
it's some sort of demonstrative aid.
Okay. So you can, if you want, you can refer to either one, but there was a date of service. Well, since there's an objection, why don't you go to Plaintiff's Exhibit 28 and we'll look at the long version. So date of service 8/13/2019.
Okay.
So in terms of that date of service, why was there a service call?
Based on this, it says the issue appliances range/oven not working.
Okay. And we didn't have like what we had on the other visits where we have a lot of detail. So all we have is this. So in your preparation today as a corporate rep, can you tell me more about this line item? Like what was wrong with the stove? Was there a malfunction? What was done to fix it? Do you have any of that information?
I don't have that information.
Okay, who would have that information?
8/13/2019. I would have to verify that information may or may not be in our system in lesson, in our portal.
Okay.
And you would see a printout similar to what you see, which we've reviewed with ProCare work orders and the smoke detector work orders.
Okay. And then on 7/7/2022, we talked about that, the smoke detector, right?
Correct.
Now, if it says IH Tech, what does that mean?
That means
In-house?
an in-house maintenance tech at one of our associates versus a third-party vendor.
Okay, thank you. And then on May 31st, 2023, it's work order B104-92540.
Okay.
Why was there what was the issue for that date?
This just says kitchen water coming through light fixture, which I imagine to be some sort of leak.
Okay.
Vendor paid, so this is something we would have sent a third-party vendor out for.
Do you know why I didn't receive any documentation for the May 31st, 2023 data service?
No.
Did you review, because that would be under your new system, right? You should still have that record.
Correct.
Okay. Did you review any documents related to that data service?
I did not.
Can you tell me what was done to correct that or fix that?
Don't have those details here.
Do you know if there was an electrical inspection for the water that touched the light fixture or that went through the light fixture to make sure that that light fixture was safe?
I don't have those details here, so I don't know.
Do you know why that was not provided to us?
No.
Do you know if water hitting an electrical apparatus such as a light fixture is a potential fire risk?
Could be.
And it says vendor paid, so do you know which vendor was paid?
Can't tell based on this detail.
Do you know how much the vendor was paid?
Once again, I don't have that detail here.
Okay. Then I want to go to the next one, which is 12/17/2023.
Okay.
So this would have been after the fire. And it says, so the first one is B11432595, fire stove. And then IH tech, is that in-house tech?
Yes.
So does this mean that there was a tech from Invitation Homes or THR Property Management LP that went out to the property to inspect the fire stove?
That would indicate, based on the detail here, it would indicate that this was assigned to an IH tech versus a vendor. The tough part is we don't have the status as we reviewed with some of the other work orders and the details.
It looks like there was, if you look at the next line, same date, B11432723, and then it says evaluated smoke detectors, IH tech. See that?
Correct. Yeah, I see that.
Who would have evaluated the smoke detectors?
I don't have a specific name. It just looks like something that was assigned to an IH tech.
Wouldn't have there been a report like we see in the other reports that we have looked at?
There would have been there's a corresponding work order likely with that.
How come I don't have that?
I don't know.
And then there's an electrician under that, there's another, same date but different number, B11432724. That says electrician. Do you know who that is?
It doesn't identify whether that's a vendor or an IH tech.
Okay.
It also doesn't identify the status of the work order.
Now, if it says IH tech, does that indicate to you some sort of status of the work order?
There's no status indicated on here. It could have been something that was created theoretically through the resident. I believe in this case, Ms. Pemberton called it in the day after, or maybe it was the day of, and it would, based on her calling it in, there would be scripting of questions which could open certain work orders, and I don't know the status, so I don't know if these work orders were potentially closed and then it was sent, to our risk management team. I can't really tell that detail here.
If there was a work order, that would be in the same system that we were looking at earlier?
If there was a work order, it would be in the same system.
Have you seen the work orders on the day of the fire, the day after the fire?
I have not seen all these work orders.
Do you know if there was anyone from Invitation Homes Realty and or THR Property Management that went to the scene and did an inspection or evaluation of the smoke detectors and the stove?
I believe that James met Christian days after, but don't believe he actually went into the home. I think, we relied on him to conduct that inspection. and of course the fire department and police department. But as far as invitation homes, it doesn't specify here IH Tech, and other than James going out, I believe it was around 6 days later, I don't have that detail.
Do you know why there was ordered an evaluation of the smoke detectors, according to the B11432723?
Well, based on the nature of the incident and this being, an accidental cooking fire, and unfortunately, Mr. Rhodes passing, anything of this nature with a fire would be reported to our risk management team, and they would file an incident. We would work with them and hand off the process to them to press forward and determine the route to take.
And obviously, with a death, I would imagine that you would want an evaluation of the smoke detectors.
Well, we would consult with, the local fire department to produce a report, and the police department, and then, in this case, we hired a third party, which was Christian, to conduct, that analysis.
Have you read the deposition transcript of Paul Snyder, the fire investigator, the fire marshal?
No.
Were you aware that he determined that the smoke detectors that were present at the scene were not operational at the time of the fire?
Check the form.
No.
Were you aware that even Christian Freza, who you hired, in his report stated that he could not determine whether the smoke detectors were operational at the time of the fire?
I did read his cause and origin report.
That's what he states, right?
I believe so.
Do you know, so I'm curious about the last line where it says electrician. Do you know why an electrician would have been called out?
I don't have those specifics. Once again, it would be speculation, but my best guess would be that these were work orders that were generated based on the scripting of the report that came in.
I want to show you the report by Christian Freza, which I'll attach as Plaintiff's Exhibit 30. So in the last paragraph, preliminary findings and recommendations, do you see that?
I do.
So he states, preliminary findings and recommendations. Examination and analysis of the fire effects and patterns established the fire originated within the kitchen. Specifically, this fire originated on the cooktop of the electric range on the right side. A further examination of the range and other electrical artifacts and devices by an electrical engineer is recommended to determine the position of the control knobs at the time of the fire and determine if a failure occurred that caused the fire. Did I read that correctly?
I believe so.
Okay. And then evidence. Per the instructions of our client, no evidence was secured. In your responsibilities, did you speak to Mr. Christian Freza upon, either when he issued this report or before he issued this report?
You're asking him personally as opposed to him as a corporate rep?
As a corporate rep.
I did not speak to Mr. Fraser
think he's
about this
asking if-
incident.
I think he's asking you as a corporate rep, which means, did anyone on behalf of the companies?
Well, let me ask you a different way, just so we're clear.
Yeah.
Do you know who told Christian Fraser not to secure the evidence?
Do I know who told him not to secure the evidence? No.
What is the policy of Invitation Homes, Realty, and/or THR Property Management when an inspector, an electrical or fire inspector, examines a property and makes recommendations? So in this case, he recommended that the range and other electrical artifacts and device be evaluated by an electrical engineer. What is the policy as it pertains to that, whether that advice is obeyed or not obeyed?
An incident of this nature, we would have consulted with our risk management team to have Mr. Fraser conduct this investigation, but also based on the recommendation, we would consult with risk management to determine, appropriate action following that. So.
Do you
that's
know
how
who
we-
that would be at risk management?
I believe Kimberly Reynolds.
So she's actually with risk management?
She is with our risk management team.
Do you know if she's the one that made the decision?
I believe so. And I think this incident in particular, the date of the loss, December 16th, I believe I think Mr. Fraser was out there 6 days later, from what I recall, and we sold the home, I believe, in February. And so my understanding is that the home was secured, as it was, prior to us disposing of the home. And then, I see this is date issued August 7th, 2024, which would have been well after that date, and we didn't own the home at that point.
Sure, I understand that. There's a guide called the NFPA 921. Mr. Fraser and I talked about it extensively in his deposition. But according to the policies of those are the guidelines for fire investigators. But were you aware that like the stove and other appliances could have been taken out of the property, the smoke detectors could have been taken out of the property for later examination, even if you sold the property?
Once again, I'm not, unfortunately, the expert here, and it's why we consult our risk management team, and they hire individuals like Mr. Fraser to conduct these investigations and consult with, local fire department and police.
Do you know why, and if you don't know, that's fine,
Yeah.
but do you know why, as a corporate rep, do you know why Invitation Homes did not ask Mr. Fraser to preserve the stove and other appliances as well as the smoke detectors prior to the sale of the property?
Check the form.
No, as I stated, I think that the home was secured, was the state it was the state it was in after the accident and after Mr. Fraser inspected, and so as far as additional steps to take, no.
No, you don't know why they were or were not preserved.
Check the form.
I don't know of additional instruction to do anything other than what we did.
Do you know, do you know what why the decision was made to sell the property so quickly after the fire?
After an incident of this nature, and really after many turns that we do an evaluation, based on the comprehensive picture, and we do a desktop analysis, and we call it an asset review, based on what it's going to take to get the home back to clean, safe, functional standards, based on location and property scores, a number of factors. And, so in this case, this home was evaluated, and based on the totality of the circumstance, we made a decision to go through disposition with this home.
Who's if the appliances and the smoke detectors, if there had been a decision to take those out of the property and secure them, who would have made that decision? Would have that been you, or would have that been Kimberly Reynolds, or would have been someone else?
Objective form.
That would have been a decision by our risk management team. Once again, we would consult with our risk management team with those logistics.
Do you know, as a corporate representative, why a decision was made not to take the smoke detectors and the electrical appliances out of the property prior to the sale?
No, it wasn't my decision.
So you would not have knowledge.
You asked if, yeah, I don't know why the decision was made. It wasn't my decision.
Fair enough. In terms of who the property was sold to, do you know who it was sold to?
I believe it was sold to, in the documents I reviewed, a technology company. I don't remember the specific name, but I think it's referenced in the documents.
Do you know if that company is a subsidiary or a partner, or has any sort of business affiliation with Invitation Homes or any of its subsidiaries?
No affiliation with Invitation Homes that I'm aware of.
So it was an arm's length transaction?
Yeah, I don't know of any affiliation. And those, anytime a home goes into a disposition status, those transactions are facilitated through our investment management group.
Okay, in terms of the pricing or, well, let me ask you this. Prior to the sale, do you know what was done to the property prior to the sale to the public?
No, I don't have those details. I believe there was a turn record that was created just out of process, but typically we defer to our investment management group, and if there's anything additional that needs to be done in order for us to sell the home, we'll coordinate with our rehab team. In many cases, the home would have been disposed as is.
Do you have any knowledge as to what was done, or if it was just completely just, as is, where there was absolutely nothing done?
I don't know.
Is there a person or an entity that I could contact to figure that out?
Yeah, we would be able to determine that through our investment management group. And like I said, there, I believe, is a turn record created for this. The technology company would probably know. They own the home, I believe.
During that time period, if there was a turn in order to sell and interior items needed to be discarded, what was the process for that? Would you rent a dumpster? Would you hire an outside company? How would that work?
Objective form.
If there's action that needs to take place for a home that is in disposition status, whether it be an incident of this nature or anything else that requires extensive rehab, we would write a scope and consult with our investment management group. And after the asset is reviewed and submitted, we would do any work that they're requiring to be able to dispose of the home.
Would that be something that you would typically, like if it was a project of this type of magnitude where there's a fire involved, would that typically be done in-house, or would it be more likely done by an outside vendor?
We use general contractors with the majority of our turns and rehabs. And so that would have been something that we use a general contractor for if it was determined that it was required.
Okay. I believe Mr. Staples had testified that there was a person who was instructed to go to the property to secure the property. This is off my memory, and I can't remember exactly when he told me that person went. I think he did give me the name though, but would have that created the type of work order that we see for?
On the 17th?
Yeah.
Potentially.
And I think Mr. Staples had testified that they needed to like secure the premises or something like that. And he had went there to secure the premises. But if that person was told to go out there to like secure the premises, would that also create a work order in the system that we reviewed earlier,
Check the form.
in the lesson system?
In many cases, when there's a severe of an incident, like we want to send somebody that's an IH representative out to make sure that the home is secured. And it could have reasonably been something that we did in this case.
Was Mr. Rhodes and Ms. Pemberton current on their rental obligations in terms of payment for rent at the time of the fire?
I believe so.
Do you know if Michelle Texan is part of the risk management team?
She's part of our in-house legal counsel. Our legal and our risk management team report through the legal umbrella of our corporate team.
Are there, in terms of the smoke alarms that were at the property and the stove and other appliances that were affected by the fire, does Invitation Homes Realty 2018-3 IH borrower or THR Property Management have possession of those items?
No.
Do you have custody or control of those items?
No.
Do you know where those items are?
No, we don't own the home, and they were left, to my knowledge.
Do you know if you've had any expert other than Christian Freza examine any of those items?
Not that I'm aware of, other than the local fire department and, potentially police department.
Sure. And was there anyone from Invitation Homes that will give testimony at trial other than maybe Christian Freza, but someone at Invitation Homes or any of its subsidiaries or affiliates, that they did an inspection of the smoke detectors and or any of the appliances after the fire?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so why don't we go over, I want to go over the Duces Takem notice. It would be at the bottom of that page, or maybe it's even over here.
I think it's right here.
Did I put a sticker on it? Did I
Number
say
1.
Exhibit 1? Okay, great. Actually, why don't we go ahead and take a short break, and we'll go through this.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
Off
Go.
the record, the time is 2:37 p.m.
I got a question for you.
We're back on record, the time is 2:42 p.m.
Okay, so I want to just go through some of the areas of inquiry, some of the things that we've gone through, so we may kind of
course.
skip pretty quickly unless
Of
you have
course.
something to add.
Okay.
And then there's some things that maybe I didn't cover. But before we get into that, during the break, I spoke to your counsel, and so just as a point of clarification, you're being produced today as a corporate representative for THR Property Management LP, 2018-3 IH Borrower LP, and Invitation Homes Realty LLC. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you understand that your testimony today is binding on all three corporations?
Correct.
They're entities, but not.
All three entities?
Yeah.
I'm testifying on their behalf as corporate rep.
Okay. Okay, so what we're just going to go through these areas of inquiry. So I think we talked about the corporate structure for THR Properties. In that affidavit that we went over, I think it said that you were the vice president of THR Property. Is that correct or not correct?
Vice President of Operations for THR Property Management. And
Okay.
Invitation Homes Realty in the amended version.
Who do you consider, because I looked you up on LinkedIn, and I think it said Invitation Homes, but that's LinkedIn. But
Yeah.
like, who do you consider, like, who pays you, or how do you, like, who's your employer?
Yeah, my paycheck says Invitation Homes Realty. Invitation Homes is the brand. And so,
I understand.
we went,
Okay. And I think we talked about, so that was number one. Now, in terms of when a property is published for leasing, do you use the MLS for that, or how are residential homes in the Tampa area advertised?
A number of different listing services. We list on our website. We have syndication through Zillow and other internal listing services. And we do post predominantly on the market or age inventory at times through the MLS.
Okay. Now, is that something, I know you have a realtor's license, but I don't know if you actually use it, but do you actually post that, or is that done by someone else?
I do not. Typically, it's our internal leasing specialists.
Okay.
And then our corporate marketing team, they're the ones that manage all of the syndication timelines with various syndication services.
Okay, so I'm going to go down to number 4. At the time of the fire, who was the owner of the property?
The ownership entity was 2018 3 IH Bar LP. I believe that's the landlord, the ownership entity on the lease agreement.
Now, sometimes in real estate, there's a limited partner that is on the deed, and then there's also an operating partner or sometimes a general partner. Do you know if there's any other owners in terms of the deed other than 2018-3 IH Borrower LP?
I believe the deed states the legal ownership entity here. I think we have a copy of that. The 2018 3 IH Borrower LP.
So we have the deed here. I'll attach this as plaintiff's exhibit.
I just went up to 30.
Okay, so I'll attach this as 31.
This doesn't look like, I mean, looks like a page.
This is, you produced this.
This is it?
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
got from you guys.
All right. We produce what we got then.
So if you look at the entity, the grantee, what's the name of the grantee on the document?
Yeah, I believe it's IH2 Property LP.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is there must be, because then we received this document as well, which I'll attach as Plaintiff's Exhibit 32. And it shows that the grantor, so this is when the property was sold to that technology company, as 2018 3 IH Borrower. So I'm assuming that there's some sort of other deed from maybe the corporate entity was changed or something like that.
It's likely. Yeah, this looks like it's from July 2013 when we acquired the home. And it's not uncommon for ownership entities to change or be transferred within the organization. I think I mentioned earlier we have roughly 50-ish ownership entities just in Tampa. And so we'll do securitization of properties, you know, a way to leverage funds and take out mortgages to secure capital, and in this case, that's what likely occurred in 2018. I'm guessing 2018 is when the ownership entity changed to 2018-3 IH borrower. Typically, that's indicated in the name of the ownership entity.
Okay. Do you know how I would get the deed for that?
We would have it in our system of record, likely.
And it would very likely be online in the official
Yeah.
records of the county.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, and, but in terms of this property, at the time of the fire, it was owned by 2018-3 IH borrower, true?
That's accurate, and that's indicated in Exhibit 32 under seller.
Do you know if THR property has ever held title to the property?
THR Property Management?
Correct.
Not to my knowledge, no. That's the management entity. Typically, the ownership entities, which are identified as the landlord on the lease, are the entities that hold title.
Who, out of THR property management in 2018-3 IH borrower LP, who assumed the responsibilities and duty to perform maintenance and repairs of the property?
THR Property Management is the management company, the entity that is tasked with, rehabs, turns, and maintenance, and everything that I reference under my oversight.
Is there an agreement between THR Property Management and 2018-3 IH borrower as it pertains to the management of properties that are owned by 2018-3 IH borrower?
It's the THR Property Management LP is the management entity, so there's no management fee as you would typically have with a third party. Like we do business with third party providers where there's a management contract and fee, but there's no fee
Sure.
associated to my knowledge.
Yeah, and I understand there's not a fee. I'm just wondering, as part of governance, is there an agreement, or if there's not an agreement because it's all part of the same umbrella of companies, that's fine too. I just want to know if there's another agreement I should be looking for.
I think there's standard, guidelines and procedures. I don't know that there's a specific agreement in this case.
Who could I find out or who could I ask to find out if there is a specific agreement between THR Property Management LP and 2018-3 IH borrower?
I don't think there's an agreement, but our legal team would be able to provide any specific legal documentation.
Would Michelle Texon know that information?
She would have that information.
Okay. So the next one, in terms of going back to number 9, so in terms of, does THR Property Management need to request permission to do repairs or maintenance for properties that are owned by 2018-3 IH borrower?
Request permission from who?
From the owner, 2018-3 IH borrower.
Where the THR Property Management is the management entity, so there's no request to have to do maintenance or any other management responsibilities.
Okay. And the reason why I ask is let's say that I owned a property and I hired a property manager and, they need to do maintenance or repairs. Typically, they would get my permission as the owner of the property, right? So this situation seems a little different than that. Would you agree?
Agree.
So, THR Property Management, there's no obligation on their part to ask 2018-3 IH borrower for permission for the maintenance and repairs of the property. They just manage and repair the property as needed.
Check the form, you can answer.
That's accurate. There's no request for permission for THR Property Management to do maintenance.
Okay. In terms of the rent, who collects that rent from the tenant? And of course, I'm interested in the Tampa area at the time, let's say during the tenancy of the lease for these premises. So end of 2021 through the time of the fire. How would the tenant pay the rent? Who would the rent be paid to, and how would the rent be held?
So optically, when a resident goes online on their portal, and I've looked at this, they see the brand Invitation Homes on the portal. Now, even if a resident's understanding is that they're making a payment to the brand, those payments are reconciled on the back end through accounting with various ownership entities based on, ownership entities for each property. So that's all handled through our centralized accounting team.
Okay, so do you know if the payment goes directly to Invitation Homes initially and then it's handled, or does the payment go directly to 2018-3 IH borrower, or does it go to THR Property Management, or does it go to Invitation Homes Realty LLC?
My understanding is the way accounting is set up is that it's tied to and going directly to these various legal entities, ownership entities that are established, and there are bank accounts for these ownership entities.
I see. Would it be a percentage though? Because my guess is there's probably some sort of percentage that goes to THR Property Management as well, right?
Not that I'm aware of. We have about, I would say, between 90 and 95% plus payments are online.
Do you know how Mr. Rhodes and Ms. Pemberton made their payments?
I don't have that detail.
In terms of, like, if there was maintenance or repairs made, and obviously those would have to be paid for, is that paid directly by 2018-3 IH borrower, or would it be some other entity? Or would that be THR Property Management, or would it be Invitation Homes Realty LLC, or Invitation Homes Incorporated?
You're talking like specific payments for contracted work?
Yeah, and again, for the greater Tampa area during the time that they were tenants.
Yeah, so payments on the occupied side of the house, Lesson is responsible, for making those payments. And then I think it's in the master services agreement that, we pay Lesson, and so
Sure.
for services.
And when you say we, because you're here for three companies,
The three
which makes
three
it complex.
legal
So
entities, yeah.
which we are you referring to?
Yeah, the brand Invitation Homes, and then the THR Property Management entity. Yeah.
And when the property is sold, does that money go back to the owner, 2018-3 IH borrower, or do you know how that works?
when we dispose of and sell, make decisions to sell properties, oftentimes we're limited with certain securitizations of disposing of assets. And when we do get that approved, we recycle that capital and invest either within the same fund or, potentially other assets. That's all handled through our investment management group.
Okay. So basically, if there's like a blanket loan on a group of properties, you would have to get permission from the loan company or investor to release that property from the portfolio.
It has to be removed from the securitization, so there is an approval process that has to take place.
Was that done for this property?
I don't know. If it was disposed of, it would have had to have been done.
Who would know what process and who was asked, or what, like, who could give me further details on who was asked, what approval was given, when the approval was given, who was the approval given by?
Once again, all the dispositions run through our investment management group, so somebody within our corporate investment management group could provide the details related to, all those intricacies.
Is that something that Michelle Texan also handles, or is that purely more on the investment side?
Probably more on the investment side, she would consult with.
Okay, so number 10, in terms of the daily operations, it sounds like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like THR Property Management was pretty involved in the management of the property.
That's accurate.
Okay. And I know you said, like, for certain repairs that were less than, I think you said $250, maybe pre-approval wasn't necessary, but there would be some repairs that would be necessary. And if it was over certain thresholds, different levels of management would have to approve that, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And, but in terms of the management that would have to approve that, that would either be THR Property Management and/or Invitation Homes Realty, right?
That's correct.
And both of those entities had the authority to approve, decline any maintenance or repair concerns, right?
That's accurate.
Now, in terms of the policies and procedures for the smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, those would have been promulgated by Invitation Homes Realty LLC and Invitation Homes?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. And maybe I can say it a little more simply, but in terms of the policy and procedures for the smoke detectors, those policies and procedures, those would have come from Invitation Homes Incorporated and Invitation Homes Realty LLC and THR Property Management.
Those policies would have been developed by THR Property Management. Those are associates are under the umbrella of THR Property Management, and so that's the team really centrally that's developing policies.
Is THR Property Management, are they in other states other than Florida?
Yes.
Is it like throughout, like, is that the management arm of Invitation Homes?
It's the property management company and entity for the broader company across 16 markets.
For all of those markets in the United States?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm on number 13. So the marketing materials, website postings, and listing descriptions, what arm is that through? Is that through THR? Is it through 2018-3 borrower? Is it through Invitation Homes Realty LLC? Or is it for our Invitation?
Our central marketing team manages all of the marketing and the listing descriptions. Our national leasing property management team manages signed leases. Marketing team, once again, manages communications. Those parties fall under the management company, THR Property Management.
Okay, so 14 this is whether THR Property any disclosures to Tyler Rhodes or his co-tenant regarding actual property ownership during their leasehold interest. So obviously, in terms of the lease that we reviewed, the landlord signed was for 2018-3 IH borrower, right?
That's correct.
Are the tenants told, like, who the management company is? Are they told that it's just Invitation Homes? Or are they told it's THR Property Management? Or what are they told? And how are they told that?
From a resident perspective, the optics when they go to apply online say Invitation Homes. That's the brand. Now, they may ask questions about the legal entity on the lease, or if they see THR Property Management, there are communications that may say THR Property Management. We describe the ownership structure on an as-needed basis as that comes up. But speaking broadly, most of our communication is Invitation Homes, the brand.
So in most cases, like, a tenant's going to think that they're renting the home from Invitation Homes.
I think that's accurate.
And is payment typically done through, like, some sort of portal? Or is it done, like, do you guys accept checks or cash? Can a tenant drop off cash, or how is that done?
No cash. We don't accept cash. We accept online payments. It's the preferred method. It's easier for our residents. As I mentioned, about 90 to 95% plus is probably through online, either with credit or debit card, or with automatic payments that are set up. And then we do have residents that will come in periodically and pay and make a physical check payment.
Sure.
Or money order.
Now, when a tenant is paying, let's say, through the online portal or in the app, does it say Invitation Homes, or what does it say on it?
The app and the online portal where they pay, it's branded Invitation Homes.
Now, in terms of the app that's used, this Invitation Homes app, it sounded from your description earlier that the tenant is able to communicate certain things with Invitation Homes about work orders and maintenance and other issues, right?
That's correct.
So is a tenant able to, like, let's say there's an issue, a maintenance issue in their home, are they able to actually put in their own work order, or do they need to call to put in the work order?
They are, and they're able to put in their own work order, either through the mobile app or desktop version, or they can call in if they prefer. Once again, we encourage folks to place online, especially via the mobile app, because we can get better information and documentation.
Can they also take photos of the problem and send that in through the app?
They can.
Now, in terms of the documents that we reviewed, I think it seemed like Mr. Rhodes, in terms of the 2022 smoke detector issue, that he called that in. Did you check to see if there was any reported issues with the repairs or maintenance of the property that Mr. Rhodes reported using the app?
I don't recall seeing any photos that he uploaded. That may have been a call, because I didn't see that level of detail that he uploaded. I only remember seeing call or photos that were check-in, check-out photos, which looked like are photos that we would have taken.
Was there a check to see if there was any sort of report that was done through the app by Mr. Rhodes during any part of his tenancy?
He would have provided the details in the issue description, and based on the troubleshooting questions that he answered, they're the same questions, whether it's verbally over the phone or whether it's through the app. That would have determined the scripting and logic for service categories, problem codes, priority levels, et cetera. And he would have provided that detail.
And my question is slightly different. So is there an actual, did you check to see if, let me ask it this way. If you use the app, is there a separate record of that complaint other than the system that we've kind of went through, and we went through all those calls and, the system, the lesson system? Is there a separate type of record that's created if you use the app to report a maintenance issue or a repair issue?
No, he would have, any work order report that he would have reported would be documented in lesson. That's a system of record for occupied maintenance.
Okay, so does that app, is there some sort of integration between that and the lesson system then?
There is, yes.
Do you know if Mr. Rhodes and or his co-tenant reported any maintenance or repair issue through the app during their tenancy?
I only have the information. I don't have a differentiation of every work order and whether it was reported through the app or verbally via a phone call. I just know that every work order that is what we termed earlier as a reactive work order would have been reported, by then, most likely either through the app or calling it in. But I don't have that level of detail differentiating which came in through which channel.
In any of the documents that we reviewed, is in terms of reporting issues, do any of those documents that the tenant would have used say THR property management, or would it just say Invitation Homes?
Which documents?
So any of the documents, like
I think
we reviewed like the work orders,
Yeah.
like if the tenant got a message.
depends on the documents. I think, the work orders specifically, you're talking like messages or notifications of updates of work orders.
Sure, thanks. You're reading my mind from a very poorly worded question. So, for example, we talked about like the dispatch record. Like the tenant would receive a message saying, "Hey, Mr. Smith is on his way. Mr. Smith has arrived." Would those say Invitation Homes? Would it say THR Property Management? Like, what would it say on it? Would it say lesson?
I don't know for certain, but I'm confident that those would be under the brand Invitation Homes. I know that I have seen leasing communications that also say THR property management, and so there are communications that reference THR property management, but I think the aesthetics and the optics of, you know, resident-facing marketing communication typically say Invitation Homes is the brand.
Whose responsibility was it to ensure the habitability of the property, the safety and inspections of the property?
When? Any
During the
specific-
time of the tenancy for Mr. Rhodes and his co-tenant?
I think it's a shared responsibility with, you know, our maintenance team, also educating third-party vendors through documentation. You know, residents also have a responsibility to maintain the property, and so as we really go out and put eyes on assets and inspect, you know, we want to identify, you know, if the home's not being taken care of, or through our inspections, if there are any potential issues that need to be addressed.
Did 2018-3 IH borrower have any specific contractual maintenance or safety or other type of inspections that it was required to perform?
I think anything required would be outlined in the lease agreement, and, you know, our policies and procedures, and we have a contract with Lesson that outlines, and I think we referenced earlier, service levels and, you know, their responsibilities, because once again, they are the primary owner of managing, you know, maintenance through their portal.
Now, in terms of the lease agreement that was signed, I'm looking at the original, which is Plaintiff's Exhibit 4, and Charles Young, looks like he signed it. Does he actually like put together the lease agreement, or who does that?
That's a process that runs through our legal team and typically our national leasing and property management team centrally. And so our legal team would sign off on any adjustments or changes to the lease agreement. And they may consult with, you know, the executive team. In this case, Charles, when this document was executed, was part of our executive team.
If the lease agreement is between 2018-3 IH borrower LP, why does it have Invitation Homes on the front of it?
That's the brand. Invitation Homes is the brand. I think we covered that earlier. It's at the bottom of the lease agreement, and it's branded on the top. And I think from, once again, an optics perspective, you know, we brand a lot of our documentation when it comes to lease agreements, policies, procedures.
Were there any property were there any property responsibilities for the management or repairs that were assigned to 2018-3 IH borrower.
Once again, it's the way the organization is structured, management responsibilities fall under a combination of THR Property Management and Invitation Homes Realty. This is simply the ownership entity, 2018-3 IH borrower. It's an ownership entity that, falls under the property management company.
In terms of the work order history, which I've attached as Plaintiff's Exhibit 28, which is just like I think in its original form, it was an Excel sheet. Would there be any additional service calls that would be found on any other software or paper copies or anywhere else? Or is this going to be all the service calls during the ownership of the property?
When you say service calls, work orders?
Work
placed.
orders, sure.
This should be comprehensive for any service calls, I believe, in the lesson system. It looks like this goes from, 2018. There are a couple from 2017 through, I believe, 2023, 2024.
And before that, that was done on a different software?
Before, when we merged 2018, 2019, that would have been through a different software, not lesson.
Do you still have access to that software?
I do not have access to that software.
Does anyone at Invitation Homes or any of its subsidiaries, do they have access to that software?
I don't know who has access to that software. I think probably I don't even think our legal team has access. I think that it's got to be requested through technology.
Do you know if those files are stored anywhere?
I don't.
Do you know who would have the answer to that question?
I don't.
Are there any training manuals or handbooks as it pertains to smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors for that would have applied to residential homes in the Tampa area, other than the one that we discussed in Plaintiff's Exhibit 3?
I believe we provided all the documentation that we have related to training as it relates to smoke detector and carbon monoxide detectors.
What about any training prior to 2022? What type of training that was provided for smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors?
I don't have any formal documentation that would have been, as we discussed earlier, in-person field meetings and in-person training sessions that are conducted on a regular basis.
What did you do to look for, to see whether or not there are any additional training materials concerning smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors?
What did I do? I looked on our Rehab Turns and Maintenance National SharePoint site, which houses all of our formal policies and processes, and was unable to find anything prior to the dates of the documents we found.
How long did it take you to perform that search?
I don't know.
I mean, was this like a 1-minute search, or was it a diligent search?
Type of form?
It wasn't. It was more than a minute. I didn't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly.
Was it more than 15 minutes?
I've spent more than 15 minutes for sure in that form. It's a SharePoint site, and so there's pretty robust search technology, and so it's pretty quick to find anything smoke detector related through a keyword search.
When you were looking in terms of any keywords that you would have put in the system to see if you could find any policies and procedures. Did you use other words other than like smoke detector? Did you use words such as smoke alarm or fire alarm? Like, did you use variations to see if because, there's lots of words for
Of course.
smoke detectors?
Yes, I did. I don't know all the variations, but I did use different variations to try to find what I could.
What variations do you recall using in looking to see if you could find any policies or procedures prior to 2022?
Smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector, smoke, just the word smoke, Procare. That's about it.
Is there any specific training that's provided, whether written or oral, let's say from any time between 2020 and 2023, as it pertains to how often smoke detectors need to be replaced and how to read the dates on the back of the smoke detector?
Our team in the field, whether it's superintendents on the vacant side of the house or our supervisors that manage maintenance techs, include that as a topic in their field meetings frequently. And so they conduct field meetings. They conduct field meetings usually once a month, maybe even more frequently at times. And they also do individual coaching and shadowing and field observations with individual superintendents and maintenance techs.
Thank you. In terms of the punch list that's created that we talked about earlier, who creates that? Is that done by Invitation Homes, like what's listed as IH, and then it's bidded out to contractor? Or does a contractor do the punch list, or what's the process for that?
The process has enhanced and evolved. We looked at a version earlier that was a checklist where the superintendent and the general contractor signed off. That would have been something that the management company or Invitation Homes, the brand, would have created for superintendents to complete. Today, I referenced Blueprint earlier this morning. This is all managed electronically, and so there's an electronic version of not only the scope, but signing off on jobs, field sign off, office sign off on, anything that's in the scope and jobs that take place. And so as the superintendent, identifies anything that's needed in the scope and that work's completed, then, GC's vendors will be paid. At the move-in, if there's anything in additional between scope and the move-in orientation, or when the home is signed off on, that may be handled through a change order. And so they would essentially add or change the scope to address anything that was observed after the initial scope. And then following that, at the move-in orientation, there might be items that are identified that need to be addressed, and that would be ideally handled on the spot if the superintendent has the ability, or now we use maintenance, orientation specialists to do those orientations, and we try to, since they have stock on their vans and trucks, handle anything they can while they're on site. And if they can't, that's when they create the deficiency list we referred to earlier, which might involve a corresponding work order.
Okay. In terms of the vendors that are used, the outside vendors that are hired by Lesson, does Lesson decide which vendors they're going to use, or is that a collaborative effort between THR Property Management and Lesson, or how does that work?
Ultimately, it's Lesson that does the onboarding of vendors and identification of vendors that we interview and source, and so they're responsible for the sourcing and procuring of vendors. Now, from a market perspective, we have a weekly operations call with Lesson where we certainly provide our feedback and try to identify, where we might have capacity concerns with certain trades, but ultimately it's Lesson's responsibility.
If there was a vendor who did not perform up to the standard that was required by THR Property Management and/or Invitation Homes Realty, are you still able to tell Lesson, hey, we don't want that contractor, or are you still forced to utilize the services of that contractor?
We would have a conversation with Lesson, and once again, Lesson ultimately is responsible for facilitating any corrective action or performance improvement plans with vendors and affiliates on an as-needed basis if they're not meeting their operational metrics, if they're not meeting performance standards.
But can Invitation Homes Realty and/or THR Property Management tell Lesson that that vendor is not approved if there were issues that were a concern for those entities?
We can provide our feedback, but Lesson owns that decision, and it's ultimately their responsibility.
Does Invitation Homes have the ability to stop using Lesson if it's so decided?
Not that I'm aware of. That's a decision that's made at the executive level.
But I'm just saying, does Invitation Homes have the ability not to renew a contract with Lesson or discharge them from further responsibilities if they wanted to?
Invitation Homes, THR Property Management, the brand, we have a contract with Lesson. It's, part of that's outlined in the master services agreement, and there's a contract term, and so of course they would make a decision, on the terms of the contract and, whether to renew the contract.
Sure, but Invitation Homes Realty or Invitation Homes, at whatever level, they still have the option not to renew a contract once it expires, if they so chose.
Of course.
In terms of how work orders are issued and the pricing for those work orders, how are those prices negotiated? Is that something that Lesson does, or is that something that Invitation Homes Realty and/or THR Management, Property Management does?
Lesson facilitates what we call resolution code pricing with all affiliates and vendors, and they have established pre-agreed pricing with vendors, and so then it's just a matter of scope. And so Lesson facilitates that whole process as far as establishing pricing with affiliates. In our ops calls that we have with Lesson on a weekly basis, we certainly provide feedback on challenges that we're seeing, if vendors may be over scoping, if we identify through our approval process that they're not adhering to pricing, but that's all pre-established pricing, and Lesson owns and facilitates that.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and take a break?
Going off the record, the time is 3:34 p.m.
Give it like 6 minutes.